feeling so hopeless today. School started, and I hate my classes, and I don't even know how I feel about some of my friends anymore.
Did you hear that? Was that gunshots?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh my god, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Quiet, quiet. We have to listen. We're gonna die. We're gonna die. No, we're gonna die. Get in there.
I've been feeling really down lately. My mom's been focused on my baby sister and my little brother, and my dad's been working really hard lately. And I'm just not happy with all the stuff that's been going on around me, and I have no control over it. The other day, Kay got pulled out of school because she was cutting herself. And then Carrie's brother recently died because he overdosed on some sort of opium. And there's no one I can talk to about this because my mom and dad are unavailable, and I really only have you.
Welcome, Christel. I don't know, is that the correct way with your first name is Christel?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, I love that name. It's one of my favorites. So I'm very excited to have you on the show with me. And I'll say a few things that we got from, I guess, one of the pages you're on, that you're an award-winning composer, singer, author, and filmmaker. She creates music and visual art that transcends global influences. And if that's not big, I don't know what is. You've originated in the Netherlands, and you also have a foundation in classical piano and voice. And the artist, you're very, very much of an artist. I'm going to let you add anything. Are there other things people need to know about you?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I
Okay.
think maybe what I would like to add is because since we're talking about the book, about a book which is my debut book. Before I started writing the book, I finished a CD which is also about to be released, and that CD prompted writing the book. And then when I was done with the book and the two of them met, then that prompted my debut as a filmmaker. So I have a whole series of film
Yes.
vignettes that were the result of the book. Anyway.
I understand that completely because I have a very similar story. If we
Okay,
have time at the end, I'll tell you briefly.
sounds good.
Yeah. So I gave you 6 questions with the fact that you could just do fine and be fine and drop one of them. So I have no idea which one you dropped, maybe you didn't. But let me ask you some questions that I think will kind of orient to our program and the sense of resiliency for women and characters in books. So here's my first question. Please tell us a bit about the time and the world that your major characters in your book are living in. I'll put them in the present.
Okay.
Yeah.
The two protagonists, their names are Lorenzo and Kita. They grew up in vastly different cultures and economic circumstances, or political circumstances, I should say. Lorenzo was the story is based on a true story, and a lot of these things are personal experiences. So I go in and out of mixing them probably. Lorenzo was 20 years old when Kita met him. They met in Argentina. Lorenzo was the son of a very prominent political family. He was openly gay and an artist. Neither one of those things went over too well with his family. He grew up in a country that was for most of his childhood and adulthood a dictatorship. The family was, like I said, a political family. So I'm assuming, I'm not sure about that, but I'm assuming, and I base this on some things that I heard. He must have been very scared growing up because of his family being in the opposite party and being living his life during growing up during a dictatorship. Let's see, let I leave anything out. The other protagonist, Kita, grew up in the Netherlands, which is, well, you can't be, it's a quite a different story there. So Kita grew up in a society that was, it was a democracy for as long as, for centuries. So Kita never thought about having anything, being exposed to anything else but freedom and freedom of speech. She grew up in a very tight-knit family situation in a small village. She studied music started studying music in the Netherlands, and then decided that during the first couple of years at the Conservatory of Music, that becoming an interesting artist wasn't going to happen if you stayed always between those four walls. And so she set out to Argentina, and that's where the story unfolds.
Okay. Fascinating to have one of the protagonists involved in one type of democracy, while the other is dealing with the much more complicated, scary things with a dictatorship. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Was it important for you to have these characters, particularly the woman, stay strong and resilient? Was that important for you?
Well, it's funny. I read your question, and I had the beforehand, and honestly, I'd never thought of the protagonist being as her being strong or resilient. It's more, life just happened, and the Kita just reacted to the circumstances. And I guess as a reader, even myself, when I read it back, I think, oh yeah, that probably was very resilient. But I really don't think that was on my mind when I wrote the story.
Have you seen your own world and mindset change at all as you develop these characters?
Yes, definitely.
See, that's a better question.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I should say that I started writing down this story 30 years ago.
Wow.
I wrote it then in it was quite a complex story, because this is a story about a friendship, and the friendship turns into a caregiver and a caretaker, because Lorenzo contracts AIDS, and his last wish was that I would be there for him, which I granted him, of course. And so I traveled to the other side of the world once more, and took care of him. But the day that I arrived, his mother decided to throw him out of the house. So I was totally unprepared for that. Now, I'm a musician, I'm not a nurse by any means. And so here I was thrown into being the full-time caretaker of this man who was dying, and there was, of course, in those days, no cure for AIDS. And so that, you can imagine, that was a very powerful story to start with. And so after my friend died, or after Lorenzo died, I came back to the Netherlands, and I needed to, that this all had happened without anybody being there, but just the two of us. And so I needed to write that down just to deal with it. I never had any inclination to publish this book. It was just for me to come to terms with it. And I wrote it in Dutch, which is my native language. um, even though I didn't have any intention to publish it, even then there was a publisher interested in it. And that was just by accident because somebody read it and asked me if they could pass it along to another publisher. I said, okay. But I never had any intention to do that. So 30 years passed and I rewrote it, started rewriting it 2 years ago, a year ago. And then things were different because I was, first of all, 30 years older. I looked back at not only that episode, which was the closing episode, but I looked at the beauty of the friendship with this man and how we met and we couldn't speak each other's language. And still, we immediately gravitated towards each other. So it's a love story of a completely platonic, beautiful friendship. But we were inseparable from the get-go, even though it took 8 months before we could actually speak each other's language. I have no idea what we talked about, but we were inseparable. And then it took us all over the world. We traveled all over the world. And then the closing chapter was when he fell ill and I had to deal with the family and all the taboos and all the, you name it. And then I could look, when I wrote the book, then I realized that Argentina had influenced every pore in me, that I hadn't even been aware of all of those things, but until 30 years later, I sat down and wrote it again. Now I'm a singer, I'm a pianist. I played Argentine music with a passion. I sang Argentine music with a passion. And so the poetry that was in the music that I sang in Spanish, I'm fluent in Spanish now. It seeped into my wording in the book. Without me even realizing it until I would be in the middle of a sentence and think, oh gosh, that comes from a poem that I sang, or a place would remind me of a song. So I really, honestly, at this point, I don't know where the song starts. The book begins the other way around. It's all completely mixed together. Lorenzo was a musician and he was a dancer, so we had that in common. And we had a lot of music, songs that we shared. So another reason to enter them into the book and to set the scenes for certain things in Argentina that I wouldn't find the words for in English otherwise.
This sounds like it's going to be fabulous when it comes out. It touches so many aspects of human beings and the forces of nature and sort of the mysterious things that happen to create where we're going in our lives.
Mhm.
This is great.
Thank
I
you.
don't even think I'm going to bother with the last two questions because I think we're on a roll. I want to just mention for myself to give you a sense of where I'm coming from, that I have just finished the first of what I hope is more than one book about these two girls that are students in New York City in 1960. And I have become impassioned with these girls, impassioned. And when I sit down to write, they very often take over. You know, I'm not really sure what I'm going to type, but they're sure. They're sure.
Mhm.
So why? I think in my case, it's the politics in this country. When it became clear that abortion and certain things that had become things left for people and their doctors to make decisions for themselves, when it became more political, I think that I had a rage start within me, and not for myself. I'm much too old to even think about, a pregnancy. I just had the rage of, the universal rage about something. but I couldn't write anything that's really rageful in the sense that that's not me. You know, I had to turn it into art. And so these girls, you know, it's all about them and what happens in their love affairs, their freshman year of college and stuff like that. And things they learn and things they're not up to learning yet. So I think that that is a kind of artistic, but also it's a link between artists, I think, in general, to have very deep reasons why they do something with their art. And you really, really express that. You know, your art is a serious combination of all sorts of personal things that draw people to each other and make a life, you know?
Yeah, thank
You should be very proud of yourself, and it's exciting. It's really exciting.
It has been an incredible journey, that I can say. It's like, I think it all started with when it all came back. You see, I moved to the US 25 years ago, and married a lovely man whom I still married to, and I think in the for the long, I didn't return to Argentine music while here for some reason. It just didn't happen. But like I said, I did study that profoundly before. So one morning, I remember I woke up and I said to my husband, you know what, I don't know, but for some reason I have this incredible sense of nostalgia. And I don't know where this comes from. I don't know why. But it's just, I can't shake it. And so, as a lot of times happens, so you try to fight those uncomfortable
Right.
feelings until and this is mostly how things happen for me, is I go back in the studio. Here you see I'm in my studio right now, and I go in there and I think to myself, what if I don't fight this? What if I just let it happen?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's when I thought, and then before I knew it, I opened the door. I thought, oh, I'm back in Argentina, because what better country to express nostalgia in than in Spanish, and then in Argentina is, well, you think tango. So before I know it, I was completely in the middle of writing tangos and milongas and zambas, and so that album is about to be released. But
oh,
when
that's
that
wonderful.
was done, took me a year or so. I thought I was completely done, and then a friend of mine comes in and sees this first edition of my Dutch version of this book, and says, "What is that?" And she couldn't read it; it wasn't Dutch. She said, "Oh, it's a book I wrote years ago. It's not really released, and I have no intention of releasing that." And she said, "Tell me the story." And so I tell her the story, and she looked at me and she said, "You should write that down." I said, "I did." Yes, she said, "But write it in English." I said, "Okay." So that's what I did, and then the whole thing, the music, the book, it all came together, and it took me another year. And then, like I said, then I was just playing again, not trying to close any door, just leaving everything open and see where it would lead me. Then what happened next was, I thought to myself, even though I didn't plan those things to belong together, I thought, I bet you the music fits those stories. And so I was just playing around and thought, let me narrate the first chapter and put some music under it and see what it does, if it really likes each other. And so I did that. And then when I finished that, I thought, now I have a soundtrack, but I don't have a film. So that's when I fell into
Yes,
and
yes.
created, until now I have 5 short vignettes that I
I
created.
saw some of those. They were beautiful, very, very, very artistic and filled with essence. You know, you could just feel it. Wow, well,
Mm.
I've been just
Okay.
so funny that we have these things in parallel going on, and
Right.
yeah, I just want to see if there's anything important I want to ask you. We have to stop or we'll get cut off, but do you have any advice you would give potential authors or authors about going ahead with this type of project that's so organic? Do you have any, would you advise them? Would you not advise them? You know, what would you do to help them out if they're sitting on something in the beginning?
Just, I think, follow where it leads you, follow your heart, and um, don't and make a lot of quiet time for yourself so you can actually hear what's in there, because the stories we tell, I believe they are already there. They just require, what they require of us I, um, is to make our lives go quiet so you can actually hear what wants to come out of you. And I don't think that is something that's uniquely me. I think everybody can do that. It's just a matter of patience, quiet, following your heart. Don't be afraid. That's
Very
what.
good advice. So our time is really up. It's a pretty short interview, but I know that we may meet again. You never know. I
Yeah,
do have a friend in the atmosphere where you live, and
I
we
know.
we visited her a few times. It's time to go back and say hello in person.
I would love to
But
meet you again.
yeah, it
And
would be
she's a very
great.
dear friend of mine too.
Yes, yes. Well, who cannot fall for this woman of
I
creative
agree.
brilliance herself?
I agree.
Um, how can people reach you if they want to?
They can reach me on all the social media. You can find my music everywhere.
Okay.
And you can find everything you need to know possibly on my website. So if you,
What's
I
the
don't,
name of your website? Does it have a name?
yes, it's christelveraart.com, which is
Okay.
difficult to spell, but I don't know if you can add that maybe to the somewhere include that in the text underneath the.
Yes. Why don't you send me a little email, because my partner in crime, Don, who helps me with all this stuff, he'll have to put it together. So if you send an email, we'll
I
make sure
gladly
it
help
gets
you with
added.
that, of course, sure.
So, all right, till we meet somehow, some way.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I
You're
really appreciate
welcome.
it. Thank
Good
you.
night for now.
Night. Good night.